Will the United States and China and Russia go into war with one another? Well, that is what the new discussions are about, because there are now reports that yes, if the US goes into war with Russia, China is going to jump in. But if the United States goes to war with China, then Russia will jump in and help them. Well, potentially. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. All I ask is one thing. It takes 2 seconds. Go ahead, hit that like button if you enjoy these daily updates. And now, let's begin. So why do we continue to have all these discussions regarding the United States going to war with Russia or the United States going to war with China? Well, it's because both of these countries are setting themselves up, or they are discussing and talking about being prepared for said war. Here's something that China is doing. It says a border patrol sector stops hundreds of Chinese illegal immigrants in just 2 days as numbers soar. What we've heard from the FBI and Homeland Security over the past 6 months to a year is that they are very concerned of the threats coming out of China. Not just the cyber attacks, but also being that our borders are not 100% secure. People are coming in from China, and those could potentially be terrorists. Those could be people that are planning an attack here on U.S. soil. It could be a cyber attack, but they're doing it from within our borders. So that's the first thing they're talking about. Also, look at this. It says NATO drills show it is preparing for potential conflict with Russia, according to Moscow. So what NATO is doing, some of the wars or some of the military exercises that they are conducting, Russia believes they are preparing for a conflict in the near future. Why would we do that? Obviously we're planning, we want to plan for the worst, right? We want to prepare and plan for the worst. If we prepare and plan for the worst, then anything less, obviously we're good. We are prepared for it. But it's because of this right here, and I want to show you this, okay? This is from Business Insider. This is actually just from yesterday. It says, the U.S. could have to deal with both Russia and China if it ends up at war with one of them, according to a top intelligence official. Now, the other day I was talking about this, and I told you that the U.S. in the past, the U.S. reportedly had a somewhat of a pact in place where if the U.S. went to war with Russia, China couldn't jump in. If the U.S. went to war with China, Russia couldn't jump in, right? And so the one thing that all three countries don't want is all three countries to go to war with one another. That would absolutely create a world war. That would devastate economies. That would probably kill off hundreds of thousands of people, right? We would see the biggest mass casualty ever because of that. And so they do not want that. But according to this report from Business Insider, they say that yes, if the U.S. goes to war with Russia, they will have to contend with China, or vice versa. So that is obviously a problem. But why are we discussing this now? What is China doing? What is Russia doing? Well, Russia continues to attack Ukraine. And some of the methods that they're using to attack Ukraine is something that the United States is very against. But it's not really about Russia. It's about China. China is the reason why more people are concerned. Here's one of the things the U.S. just did. It says the U.S. imposes sanctions on more than a dozen companies in China for support of Russia's war in Ukraine. China continues to send some funding or equipment over to Russia. According to AP News, it says U.S. intelligence finding shows China surging equipment sales to Russia to help war effort in Ukraine. We knew China was helping. We just didn't know to what extent. We didn't know how much, or if China was willing to help to end this war. According to these reports, China is not attempting to end the war. China is attempting to help Russia win over Ukraine. So, I don't know what happens from there. But all I know is that this is causing more and more concerns from the Pentagon as to what is China's involvement here and how big is the pact and the relationship between Russia and China. Well, I don't know how good their relationship is. All we get is reports. But I do know something else. And this I thought was very interesting. I was reading this yesterday, and I thought this was, well, somewhat concerning. And let me know your thoughts on this as well. It says, this is from Business Insider. It says, China's true military spending in 2022 was likely worth $711 billion, or nearly equal to the U.S. military budget that year. That is concerning because right now the United States, I believe the last report that we got, the U.S. spends the equivalent of the next like 3 to 15 countries combined in military spending. And if China had just did the exact same amount, what are they preparing for? It says a new report says China's $229 billion military budget in 2022 was actually equivalent to $711 billion. It says a similar figure was touted by lawmakers last year when they cited U.S. intelligence estimates. So we now believe that China spent over $700 billion, not $229 billion, like was what was reported. That's a huge difference. Not only is that a huge difference, that shows that China is preparing for something. You don't spend almost $1 trillion on your military budget like the United States does if you are not planning to use that military. The United States continues to use their military to send ships over to the Red Sea or the Mediterranean Sea. We send military troops over to the Middle East or to other countries that need us. Okay? We send military equipment to Ukraine, to Israel, to other countries that need it, our allies. So is China attempting to create more allies? Is China preparing for a war with another nation, another major nation? For instance, the U.S. Well, we're going to find out. But this is also why some believe China is preparing to reunify Taiwan with mainland China in the near future. Because China does not want to spend almost $1 trillion every single year on their military budget. They can't and they won't. But just to do it once and to do a one-time attack, well, it may be in the cards. One thing I want to show you though is that right now China is doing, it's believed that China is doing everything they can to catch up to the United States. Here's something else they're doing according to Business Insider. It says China is building a huge network of satellites that could be used against U.S. troops. We have known China has been attempting to use, satellites and try to, spy on other countries and do things like that, right? Of course, they want to get ahead. They're going to do what they can. But according to this Pentagon official, they warned that it could be used to target U.S. troops and to limit the impact of our troops, whether they're here on U.S. soil or over in another country. All I can tell you right now is the writing is on the wall. We need to be prepared for whatever's to come because as of right now, it looks like China's preparing for a war, Russia's preparing for a greater war than what they got going on with Ukraine. And one of the reasons why is because they're now trying to partner with China. But obviously the United States, they know something could happen. They're just trying to prepare for it. So we'll see what happens moving forward. All I can tell you right now is I'm a little bit concerned. Now I don't think China and Russia and the US are ever going to go to war, or hopefully not. I really hope they don't. But at the same time, are we going to see other countries, our allies, start to attack each other because of what we are doing? That is most likely going to happen, and then we will throw our military equipment and funding in there to help those allies. As far as our troops, well, they will probably just be sitting and watching. So we'll see what happens moving forward. All I can tell you again, I will be here every step of the way. I will fill you in on all the latest news and updates. But as of today, that is what we know. So again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.